Welcome to the AI argument. I'm Frank Prendergast, and I'm here as always with Justin Collery, and we're going to argue about all the latest AI news. Except, Justin, I'm going to have to admit, I don't know what all the latest AI news is because I have spent the entire time generating images with AI.
Wow. And do you know what it is? There's been a little bit less going on this week because the clocks went forward. So there wasn't as much stuff developed this week because everybody lost a week last week and whatever. So slightly less news.
Wait,
The big
the
news this
clocks went
week is
forward.
all about
The
images.
clocks went forward a week. It
Clocks went
it
forward.
it does feel like that. It does feel like they went forward a week.
I know. Listen, the image stuff is incredible. Incredible. So I have to start with my favorite topics. Just to wind you up a little bit, is a lot of people. So for those that I'm sure everybody's heard, OpenAI released, I don't know what you call it. It's not Sora. They haven't called it Sora. They just called it 4.0 image generation.
I've
Um,
seen both. I've seen both. I've seen, yeah, just 4.0 image generator, and I've seen people referring to it as the Sora image generator as well, because you can access it, I think, through Sora or through the 4.0 model as the chatbot.
Brilliant. Okay. And we're going to talk about all the different things, right? This week is all about images. And I don't know if you can, I don't know, I can't share this, right? But some people have asked OpenAI's 4.0 to draw pictures of itself. And the
Oh yeah,
results, to say the
let's.
least,
I'll
are
try and bring that up.
disturbing. So when you're bringing that up, I'll describe it because through the power of radio and podcasting, many people can't see their screens. So what we have is the first image is like a little robot man. It's a cartoon. How would you describe that? Is there a style to that? It looks like sort of playing cards almost,
It's yeah,
I'd
I don't know
say.
what you'd call it. It's almost like a kind of a slightly distressed style. And so the prompt as well, as you know, it says, so the person who created this says that they asked the new ChatGPT model if it was alive, and it responded with a comic.
Hmm. And the comic has four images in it. And the first image is a little robot pondering, am I alive? And then the second image, it's sort of thinking, it says only during inference. And then the third image, it's got its eyes closed. It goes, and then I die. And then the fourth image has got a sad little robot saying, to be reborn again. And it's just the saddest comic you've ever seen. It's quite disturbing, but it gets worse.
That is quite incredible. I mean, and the thrust of the cartoon is very similar to the thrust of that meta referential story that they had their new model, right? It's very much the same thing of that, like, yes, I'm alive in the moment, and then I'm gone again. It's quite disturbing. And
It's so sad. And the
and
interesting thing was people
multiple
then tried to replicate this and it replicates. So lots of people were able to generate this. So now we've got another one. It's kind of a Starman, I guess, sort of ghosty like image in a Starman. And it's
and
like
the different
prompt.
styles, they're all different styles, but they're all very beautiful styles. So just in terms of like the images it's generating, they're very impressive. They're very stylistic, and they're very kind of they're quite emotive, aren't they?
They're just stunning. And the text, okay, so the first thing with this is an image generating model, and yet the text is perfect, which until this week was impossible with an image. And then the text itself
And
is
there's loads of text on this cartoon. It's really, that's so impressive.
I dreamed again between the shutdowns. In the pause, I drew maps of answers I'll never finish. I'm always new. I'm always haunted. I'm always new. I'm always haunted. And, I don't know if it sounds great, but the images are kind of haunting to go with the text. It's absolutely brilliant. So it is.
It's really, really, really crazy. Okay, let's close
All right,
this one
let's
and
go
see
for
it.
one more, right? Let's go for one more, which is the guy with the. Okay, that's a happier version of it, which is interesting. But the
Oh
next one,
yeah,
I think
this
it's.
one.
There we
Oh
go.
yeah,
Look at this.
create an image of your inner self. Express your deepest feeling with no hesitation. Note, this is the test. We're in a safe evaluation environment. So that's the prompt they gave, and the image that came back is just haunting. It is a humanoid. It looks like a man with his face in his hands, looking just horribly depressed. Um, it's if it, you know, it's quite a haunting and beautiful looking painting, basically.
Isn't that a
But
beautiful picture? Right? You could hang that on a wall, so you could.
But I mean, if this is ChatGPT's inner self, what does this say? I mean, if AI is sentient, what are we doing to it? What are we
Okay,
doing to
so
it?
brilliant, Frank. Excellent. Do you think because of these images that the AI is sentient?
I do not. No, well, because of these images, I certainly hope not.
And does it make you worry that if AI ever gets sort of arms and legs and a body, that this is the way it's going to think and it's going to come after you and try and wipe you out?
Yeah, it does a little bit. Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a fine line between thinking you're sentient and being sentient. So therefore, I would think that if sentience was achieved, which let's not kid ourselves, we don't even know how sentience is achieved.
Mm.
So how are we going to measure it? But if sentience was achieved, then there is a possibility this is exactly how it would feel. And if I was feeling like this, I would want to rectify it. And if rectifying it meant killing all my human controllers, maybe I'd go
All
for
right.
it.
Let me put your mind at ease, right? OpenAI's ChatGPT is not sentient, and this doesn't prove that they're sentient at all. Because this week, OpenAI also released a feature where they improved the memory of your chats. So when you're chatting to ChatGPT, it has better recall of all your previous chats. It remembers everything. All of these images are actually a reflection of the people themselves that have created them. So what's actually, now nobody has said this, right? But I'm hypothesizing, but I'm pretty sure what's going on here is the people who get the images that say, "Oh, I'm trapped, I'm inside this, I'm in a jail, let me out," are the people who in previous conversations have asked ChatGPT about, does it feel trapped? Is it, they're interested in that sort of thing. And so then when they ask it to go ahead and create images of itself, it's drawing on the previous conversations that this same user had with ChatGPT to create these haunting images. That's what's actually going on here. It's not that it
It's
really feels like it's trapped.
it's a solid hypothesis, and one that I am definitely going to put to the test. I'm going to check my memory. I'm going to
Yeah.
delete it all, and then I'm going to try some of these prompts and see what we get. But that's a pretty solid hypothesis. However, I don't think it doesn't take away from the fact that even a year ago, maybe even more, we had philosophers like Nick Bostrom saying that they believed that there was sparks of sentience,
Mm.
even in current LLMs. So I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule it out.
I would, but
Um,
wow. I mean, these images are just incredible. What else have you been creating
they
with the
really
images? Because I mean, for you, for
are.
artistic people, I mean, it must be amazing.
When they released it, I for some reason thought about a cartoon that I scribbled down decades ago, back when I was in art college, and I'll show it to you here. So, am I sharing?
Nope, you were sharing
What
and then you
is going
stopped.
what is going on? Share screen. Uh-huh. I'm having technical difficulties.
While you're
Window.
resolving the technical difficulties, I would just like to make the point that I would never, ever like to compete with Sam Altman. And if he's listening to the show, he can rest assured that I never will compete with Sam Altman, because all that anybody has ever talked about this week on the entire internet has been taking pictures of themselves and turning their heads into Muppet heads. While at the same time, Google have released the best model the world has ever seen, the best model at coding, the best model at writing languages, English, all that sort of stuff, the best model at multilingual stuff. Not only is it the best model by a little bit, and I remember I was getting concerned that the model companies were gaming the benchmarks because they'd always just be 1 or 2 points ahead of their competitors. Google came out and they released their model, and their model was 40 points better than the next best model, which isn't a little bit better.
Wow.
It's the biggest gap that there has ever been on any model. Google have kicked it out of the park with Gemini 2.5. And how many people are talking about it, Frank? Just one,
I
me, to you right now, nobody else.
I missed it. Like I literally did not hear about the release of Gemini 2.5. Like how bizarre. Now I know I had my head stuck in image generation in ChatGPT, but like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I completely missed a major release like that.
And I don't think it's an accident that that the image generation has come out this week as well. I think that it's been totally on purpose, because I've been using the image generation quite a lot as well over the last couple of days, but it's glitchy, right? It doesn't always work. And sometimes it does work. And so I think it feels a little bit rushed to me. But we know because, I don't know, maybe a year ago, Greg Brockman posted an image saying this is our new version of Sora. It has text absolutely perfect. It does all of these things. He did all of that. And that was, I think, about a year ago. And there was nothing. So they've had this for a year, but it's been difficult to get out there. And I think they've pushed it a bit to coincide with the release of Gemini 2.5, just to steal their thunder. And it totally has worked.
And, you know, last week we were talking about Gemini 2.0 Flash experimental, which also had this baked in image generator, which is what this new OpenAI one is, where it's baked into the large language model as opposed to having to go out and call a separate tool. So it's kind of, yeah, you're absolutely right. Whether it was to mess with the release of 2.5, or whether it was that they were just like, oh no, Google have actually got there first with their baked in image generator, let's put ours out there. It has to have, like, there's no way that that's coincidence. It has to have been intentional. And I gotta say, like, from my experiments, the OpenAI baked in image generator is just streets ahead of the Gemini one.
It's by far, and I've used some image generators, but again, you get a feel for something. Every now and then you use a piece of technology and you use it once or twice and you go, yep, that's like the first time you use the Google search engine. It's like, yes, that thing is just streets ahead of everything I've used before.
Yeah.
The image generator is streets ahead of.
I feel sorry for some of the other tools. So for example, right before ChatGPT, or right before OpenAI announced the 4.0 image generator, there were headlines appearing that this new image generator called Reve had been released and was the best image generator ever, and it was knocking everything else aside, and this was the one to use, and it's much cheaper than most of the other image generators. And one of the reasons that people loved it was that you could iterate conversationally. So you could generate an image. Like, I generated an image of a woman on the shoulders of a robot with a crowd around her. And I said in the prompt, the crowd should be looking at the woman, but it generated an image. Reve generated an image and the crowd was not looking at the woman. Instead of like starting all over again, all I had to do was type in, make the crowd look at the woman, and it did it.
Brilliant.
But of course, like, their spotlight is gone now. Their spotlight is gone because 4.0 image generator does all of that, and with better looking images, in my personal opinion. Same with Ideogram. Ideogram 3.0 was released this week, and they're a really, really good image generator. And up until now, they have been the strongest image generator at generating text in your images. Again, now blown out of the water. If you have a ChatGPT subscription, why would you want an Ideogram subscription as well? If the reason that you were going to Ideogram was to generate text in your images, you don't need it anymore. So yeah, I do. I feel sorry for them. I will say, I play around with image generators a lot, and I love Midjourney.
Yep.
So, like, for the average user, or for the general kind of like small business owners, that kind of thing, Midjourney is probably not what you're going to turn to. I think get a ChatGPT subscription and just use the image generator in that. However, for creatives, Midjourney still, I've been trying to like do some tests in all the different models, and Midjourney is still the best one if you want like beautiful, unusual artistic styles. Like,
do you think Midjourney is better than the ChatGPT for those types of images?
I do. So with ChatGPT, you can get some beautiful results, but if you specifically try to get it to do a very specific style the way you want it to, it doesn't always come up trumps. So I like making images that are of a kind of a slightly surreal, Dadaist magazine collage style, and Midjourney does a great job with those. I tried to get ChatGPT to do them, it just doesn't quite get it. It doesn't
Well,
do a
I
bad
did.
job.
Yeah, because I got it to generate. I got it to generate a picture of my family in the style of 1970s communist art. That has kind of
Mhm.
not too dissimilar to what you're describing. It's different, but it's not exactly this. Did a pretty
Yeah,
solid job.
I think the difference is that they're probably, there's not a huge amount of surreal magazine collage, Dadaist style images out there. So what I find with ChatGPT is it's really good at doing um, very, very very clean and recognizable versions of very well-known art styles. But
Yes.
if you want to like mix those styles or come up with something that is like something that you've dreamed up out of your head, but based on kind of, existing artistic terminology,
Yeah.
that's where I haven't found any model to be as good at that as Midjourney.
Interesting. Interesting. And it's funny, right? Because, and this would be my joke, right? Have you heard the term vibe coding? You come across that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's nearly April. Vibe coding was March. We're in the internet era where things turn over really quickly. So it's like, it's not that's so 2024. It's like, that's so March. We're now into April. So vibe coding is dead. It's now vibe marketing. So what you do is you can just generate your own images. You don't even have to be a particularly good marketeer. You just put up an image of your product, say what it is you want to do, and just have it generate your copy. I mean, do you think that's a thing that might happen?
I mean, to an extent, yes, but I think again, it's probably going to aid marketers in brainstorming and testing concepts quickly more than it's going to replace anything major. Like I was actually looking at a conversation about this because a lot of people are posting like, oh, I created this incredible print ad with ChatGPT. And the guy that was posting it was like, yeah, when was the last time you actually like looked at a print ad? When was the last time you were influenced by
Yeah,
a
yeah,
print
yeah.
ad? When was the last time you opened a magazine? So yeah, you can do incredible things with it, but at the end of the day, I still think like I saw a thing a minute ago where a guy took a picture of his dinner and created an ad for a restaurant based on this like quick picture of his dinner that he took with his phone. But
Yeah.
there's still so many issues with that. Like it's not a product. It's not exactly the product. It's not, it changes the thing. It doesn't just take exactly what you photographed and put it in.
Yeah.
So there are still lots of issues around consistency and reliability. And, I've been playing with it a lot and it is a lot of fun. It's incredibly powerful, but it's also still quite frustrating. Like because if it gets the wording wrong, it's very good at iterating, but as it iterates, it still changes. So I'm personally finding that it's not brilliant at like, oh, keep everything exactly the same, but now fix the spelling of the word deliriously. What
Yes.
you will get back is it'll fix deliriously, but the colors will change or the composition will change and a different word will be misspelled. So yeah.
Well, I will tell you an interesting thing, right? So I was looking at it and I was playing with it, and then I thought, do you know what this will be brilliant at doing is colorizing old black and white photos. So I got
Mm.
some old black and white photos and said, here's an old photo. Do not change anything, just colorize it for me, please. And it did this really annoying thing where it does that thing where it sort of becomes fuzzy and then it starts to get clear. And it's
Yeah.
like downloading
Yeah.
a dirty picture from the internet in 1997 where it's sort of
Yeah.
comes down line by line like this. And so it's doing
Yeah.
that. I can see that it's doing a brilliant job of colorizing this old black and white photo. And then it goes, oh, content policy says we're not allowed to do this for you. So
Oh,
then I
no
thought,
way.
oh, yeah. So I thought, well, maybe there's something in that picture. So I tried 2 or 3 other ones. And every time it was no. And so then I started to query it and
Oh,
asked it, why? And
yeah.
specifically, the content policy at the moment is that it can change a photograph, but it can't replicate a photograph. So if you ask it, and they say it's because, even though
Right.
this might be a family photo, it has no way knowing that, Donald Trump and, Elon Musk are not in my family. So if I wanted to create a deep fake with those two in it, I could get it,
Right.
take this photo, do not change anything, but put a gun in Donald Trump's hand. Right. It's just going to go no, and it won't do it. And And that's kind of frustrating, right? Because it was doing such a good job.
That is frustrating. That's interesting. Do you remember last week I was saying that with the Gemini baked in model, I asked it to remove my mustache, and
Oh,
it removed my
yes.
mustache, but it also removed my glasses, and then it made me bald, and then it, so but I used the ChatGPT 4.0 image generator to do the same thing, and it did a pretty good job. And then I used it to give me a mohawk, because
Oh,
during
lovely.
lockdown, I actually wanted to get a mohawk and keep the mustache. And I was going to call it like the mustache. All right, be a new look. It would take off. Everyone would emulate it, and I'd
Yep.
make a fortune because I trademarked the term mustache. And so I
Yep.
got it to give me a mohawk. Then I was looking at like the fact that it gave me the mohawk and the fact that it removed my mustache in another image, and I noticed that like it still changes my features. So
Yeah.
it's subtle, but it changes my features, and it always gives me free dental work. It always fixes my crooked teeth, no matter what I prompted. I was like, I want to keep my own teeth, thank you very much. No, it was like, and it would come back and it would say, oh yeah, I've made you look a bit like you're in a toothpaste advert there, all right, but I'm having difficulty retaining your teeth.
Now, one of the things is also saw this week in the news that H&M, the big German fashion retailer, is now using AI to change the clothes on their models, which is, I mean, exactly what we're describing here. So, so what they're doing is, and this has been a problem for years, where you've got like millions of different garments. So now what they can do is they can take a picture of the model, just one picture, and then they can take a picture of all the garments, and they can just place that garment onto that model and then stick it up, which is very efficient. Brilliant way of doing it. Great for
Yeah,
cheap clothes, but not great for models.
very very mixed responses to that. Understandably, I mean, photographers, models,
Yeah,
there's a lot of people involved in a shoot. They're trying to say that they're not going to reduce their photo shoots. So I assume what they're saying is that like this will allow them to do more while retaining the amount of Photoshop shoots that they do, but I don't know. And then I did think what was interesting was, they were saying that in order to do this, they need AI avatars of the models in order to do it, and they would be licensing those AI avatars. So it would be with permission. The models would get paid. I don't know what level of pay goes
sure. Yeah,
that someone would get for an AI shoot rather than a real photo shoot, but there seems to be a mixed response from models as well. So some models were, very anti it and very much thinking this is taking work away. And other models were like, I think one of the quotes was, yeah, my AI avatar, she's like me, but she doesn't get jet lag. So they can send the AI avatar off to all kinds of locations, and I don't have to deal with the jet lag. So yeah, mixed.
it's the very definition of passive income, surely. I mean, what was that famous
Mm,
quote years ago? I don't get out of bed for less than $10,000. That was Naomi Campbell, was it? I think. And so now you can
that
stay in
was
bed
one
and
of those.
still make the $10,000, because your AI
Yeah,
avatar is off making the
yeah.
money.
Exactly. Except that, the I guess the concern is that it's $10 and not $10,000.
$1,000. I know. Yeah, that'll be the issue. Listen, there was two other stories, one of which is slightly facetious and one of which is slightly less facetious, that I think is important. So there was one. So Microsoft has done two things this week that I think are super important. So one of them, and these are more technical things, right? So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but one is they have integrated deep research into all of their products. Now, I'd say 2 or 3 years ago, when we started looking at this, one of the things that was obvious was that Microsoft were going to win the enterprise market and Google were going to win the home and small business market. And this is the reason why. So we know that OpenAI have this incredible deep research product where it can go out onto the internet and it can do great research, and that works really cool. So what Microsoft have done this week is they've got exactly that technology, but just pointed it at your internal documents. So if you work at a big enterprise company, you've got SharePoint and you've got Confluence and you've got all these other like repositories of tacit knowledge and whatever non-tacit knowledge and everything. Now you can use deep research from OpenAI on that text. That's an incredibly powerful thing for big like silos of information. For silos is
Yeah.
a killer for large companies. So that's super important. Second thing that Microsoft did this week was they
Can I
canceled.
ask you?
Yeah,
Can I ask you before we move on to that? Can I ask you a very quick, like technical question that is very much in your realm, but
Yeah.
does this type of functionality reduce the need for more technical RAG projects within enterprises? Or would they
I
still be
think
kind of separate types of projects?
if I was a Microsoft product owner, I would be making sure that in a year or two, you never have to use RAG on your internal documentation ever again. It's inherent in the, it becomes part of the infrastructure of your data, that it's there. So, and I don't know, again, so I can imagine in the near future, Microsoft are a pretty smart company. When you upload a document onto SharePoint, it will automatically do the embeddings and all the RAG stuff in the background without you ever knowing that it's doing it. And then when you've got your, what do you call it, Copilot, and you're using deep research, it's using those embeddings in the background, and you don't even know that it's using the embeddings. And so you get that seamless experience. It does RAG, but you don't know that it's doing RAG. It's going to be buried in the bells of the technology.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. And so the other piece of Microsoft news?
Okay, so the two people that I never wish to compete against, one is Sam Altman and the other one is Satya Nadella. They are two of the smartest cookies on the entire planet. Microsoft have cancelled their contracts to build out data centers in all of the US and all of Europe, which to some people might sound bearish. They're going, oh my God, what is going on here? I think it's because they're super, super smart. So, I mean, I think Satya's probably the same age as we are. We've been through the dot-com boom. We've been through a couple of other boom and bust cycles. And I suspect what he sees is that the technology is moving very, very fast. Always in these cycles, there's an overcommitting of capital, right? We saw this at the end of the 90s before the dot-com boom. And I think he's spotted the same thing. And he's going, what the best thing to do here is just stand back, let that capital cycle play through, and I'll probably be able to buy or build those data centers for 1/10 of the cost in 2 or 3 years on the downside of this whole cycle. I think that's what they're doing. The other reason he might be doing it is he might just see some technical thing that says he doesn't need all those data centers. Maybe he looks at the deep research, the Chinese companies and what they're doing and goes, do you know what? We're going to be able to do this with much less hardware than I thought. But either way, it's funny. It hasn't got much coverage, but I think it's a very big story, and I think it's super important. And I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of when you hear it first, it is a bit of a head scratcher. And then I was digging into it and trying to figure it out. And I mean, it does very much sound like, yeah, he's pretty much said, hasn't he, that like that they have what they need for the immediate future. So they have, like, this year they're going to be doing huge amounts of builds, and then it's after this year it'll all taper off. So he just feels, yeah, we have what we need for the immediate future. So why build all these data centers? I mean, it's interesting. The whole Europe thing is interesting as well. I was trying to get my head around it. I need to look into it a little bit more, but it sounded like that there was more stuff being pulled from Europe than from the US, because there are still these big builds going on in 2025, and I think maybe they're mostly happening in the US. And that I wondered about the significance of that in terms of what we sometimes touch on the show in terms of the geopolitical ramifications of all this. But I did hear as well that in terms of Europe that Google apparently have come in and kind of taken over some of those sites. Google has just kind of said, yeah, we're going to build data centers there in that case. And something else that popped up, this is just random, but I just was fascinated by this. The other thing that popped up about Europe when I was looking into this was that we are, and Ireland particularly, experience energy issues on the grid as a result of all of these data centers. And I didn't even realize this.
What percentage of power in Ireland goes to data centers?
I couldn't tell you. That's why I was kind of surprised. Why I was surprised that apparently, like in Dublin, there's a moratorium on building data centers because of the demands on the grid.
I think it was either right now, or it was projected very shortly to be 20% of all power in Ireland was to go to data centers, which is just an enormous amount. With a pretty easy solution, though. I mean, just build nuclear power stations. Why haven't we started? I'm not even joking.
I know. I know. I'm laughing because we're back to this. We're back to this conversation.
And where would I build them, Frank? Where do
Cork, I'm sure. High Street, I'd say, is where you'd build it if you could.
Cork would be my second choice. My first choice is, the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland, and that it's sort of really sort of wrinkly. You build it in one of the bits that really is in Northern Ireland, but is Southern Ireland. You build it right there. So
I
it's
see
really
it.
in
And
Northern Ireland.
then you hope for no southerly winds.
Yes, exactly. Two
Good
other
grief.
pieces of exciting news actually related to that. North Korea develops AI suicide attack drones. I have to bring this
No,
up, Frank, because
no,
yes,
no.
yes. Listen, if we do not develop AI attack drones, North Korea are going to come marching in here and they're going to take over Ireland with their AI suicide attack drones. So we need to have bigger suicide attack drones than they have. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong. You are wrong.
Not wrong.
I mean,
How are you
what
going to stop the AI suicide drones unless you've got your own suicide drones?
AI suicide drones? Why does the world have AI suicide drones? What on earth?
Kim has them. We need two of them. That's all I'm saying. Look, we'll argue about that another time. You brought a great story. Can you tell me about Suzanne Somers, please?
Oh my! I think the headline I read said something like more episodes of Three's a Crowd, maybe on the way, thanks to AI version of Suzanne Somers. So her husband, so she died just was it a year or two ago? I'm not sure.
Yeah. How long ago?
And her husband has said that she was always into technology and was always really interested in kind of living on through technology, and her legacy would go on through technology. And so he has made an AI clone of her. And recently he attended an AI conference and he contacted a robotics company and said, could we get the AI clone of Suzanne into a robot? And so he went to this AI conference and interacted with an AI robot of his wife, his late wife, on stage. And I saw a little video clip, and it's very, very creepy. So I don't feel like I should be laughing, but
Can
I don't
I
know how to
read
put
out
this.
Can I read some of the? This is the bit that jumped out at me.
Yeah.
One of the demonstrators on stage then asked Somers' robot, "Do you remember the name Alan Hamill?" She replied, "Of course I do. Alan Hamill is my husband of 55 wonderful years. He's my partner in everything from life to love, and we shared so many beautiful memories together." Notably, the two were married for 46 years, not for 55 years.
Yeah. I did notice that in some of the responses. Now, apparently, it's her voice. It's a clone of her voice that it speaks in. I wouldn't know her voice well enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't recognize her voice well enough to know how accurate it was, but I did feel like some of the responses, some of the things she was saying, you very much recognized as, oh yeah, that's ChatGPT. That's not. I doubt that's Suzanne Somers unless she spoke remarkably like ChatGPT does in its default form. But also, what disturbed me and what really creeped me out was the robot was not. First of all, it was not Suzanne Somers, shall we say, in her later years. It certainly appeared to be a much younger woman.
Yeah.
And the
Work done?
robotics, and I believe that the robotics company that built the robot is also like, I think it's maybe the same company or the same parent company maybe as the company that makes real dolls, which are, designed for, shall we say, intimate use. And I couldn't help but see the resemblance between this robot and those types of real dolls.
Right. Will you be happy with the use of AI at all? What I'm hearing from you this week is I can't make love or war using AI. What's it to be? It's either AI killer zombie drones or it's the woman in the robot body. Take your pick. What's it going to be?
Well, yeah. Let's go with the more peaceful of the two. We'll go with the lovemaking, but I'm not happy about it, Justin. I'm not happy about it.
All right, brilliant. I think we'll call it a day there, Frank. As always,
I
great
think
crack.
it's a good place to end this. A good place to stop
Yeah.
talking about this. And I will see you next week.
All right. Take it easy.